Over on Twitter, a video was getting shared around that made me sit up and take notice. It was a highlight video featuring a Triple Threat WWF match, Bret Hart vs Shawn Michaels vs Sycho Sid. The match, recorded in early 1997, was a dark match held inside the Toronto Skydome, and while I knew the match took place, I didn't know it was recorded using the TV cameras set up inside the stadium. I went on a mission to find where this highlight video was clipped from, and I couldn't find it in the usual places, but upon further investigation, it was actually only released on DVD. The WWE released a set of unreleased matches from the Attitude Era as part of its Attitude Era DVD series, and I totally ignored this upon release. I picked up the first Attitude Era DVD and I didn't think it was all that great, so I just thought the subsequent releases would be more of the same, but no, I really should have looked into this one when it was released years ago. I've watched the full Triple Threat match and it's a very interesting matchup for a few reasons, and I'm going to talk about those reasons and the match itself in today's video. So this is the unreleased, untelevised dark match featuring Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels and Sycho Sid from 1997. A bit more on the DVD before we continue on. The WWE have released other DVD sets that include unreleased matches. A while back I picked up the Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels DVDs, but keep in mind that both of these sets do include matches that were televised. What WWE really means by unreleased are matches that were never made available for home video. You do get matches that weren't originally broadcasted on TV, but you will see some matches that you've already seen before. The Hogan one even contains WCW pay-per-view matches, for example, and lots of matches that aired on regional cable channels such as Prism in Philadelphia or the MSG network from New York. But also keep in mind that WWE had never made those matches available on home media prior to Hogan's DVD coming out. This one was released before WWE Network came along. The Shawn Michaels release has a better mix of unseen content and content that was never put on home video. You get some interesting dark matches here along with Mid-South and AWA matches. So if you have to choose one set to go with, I'd recommend Shawn's DVD over Hogan's. The network itself also has its own section for dark matches, but you'll need to get the DVDs if you want to see more. You could also pirate the DVDs, of course, because who wants to mess around with DVDs anymore? You need to know where to look though, and trust me, I tried with the Attitude Era unreleased set, but I couldn't find it. When adding the Attitude Era unreleased DVD to my shopping basket online, I also came across 3 other unreleased sets: Macho Man, Roddy Piper, and this one here featuring unreleased matches from 1986 to 1995. So I bought them all, and my hope is that I can make a series on YouTube maybe that gives a bit more context for the unseen dark matchups that are featured on these sets. I firmly believe that you get way more out of wrestling matches if you know everything that led up to the matches, and it's the reason why I like to include details about the build-ups when covering pay-per-views on the channel. So I think it would be fun to explain the stories of these unreleased matches while also talking about what happened from bell to bell. I've watched most of the Attitude Era set and there's some absolute gold in here, from dark matches recorded for in-your-house events to the superstars fighting in different countries. There were a couple of matches that I've seen before either on WWE Network or via fan cam footage, but honestly, if you enjoyed WWF during 1996 and 1997, you're gonna really like what's been put on these DVDs. The match we're going to talk about today is the first match from Disc 2, so that tells you there's plenty of matches before and after this Triple Threat match took place. Alright, let's set the tone. This Triple Threat encounter took place during a WWF Raw taping held in the Toronto Skydome. That particular episode of Raw aired on February 3rd, 1997, but the tapings took place on the 31st of January, 11 days after the 1997 Royal Rumble. At the Royal Rumble event, Shawn Michaels reclaimed the WWF Championship when he defeated Sycho Sid, and Bret Hart was screwed out of a Royal Rumble match victory by Stone Cold Steve Austin. At this point in time, it's largely believed that WrestleMania 13 would feature HBK defending his championship against Bret Hart, and I do want to point out though that it's only believed and not confirmed. If you listen to podcasts and interviews from the guys backstage during this time, and if you listen to Bret himself, everyone pretty much says Mania 13 was to feature the big HBK versus Hitman rematch, but there are those who say otherwise too, so yeah, plans could have changed at the last minute also, who knows. On the Raw before February 3rd, Bret talked to Shawn about making sure he was 100% heading into WrestleMania because the excellence of execution was going to win the upcoming Final Four match at In Your House, and he planned on taking the belt away from Shawn at Mania. But we all know that didn't happen, and things got a little messy when HBK forfeited the title the week after February 3rd. In a way though, you could look at this upcoming Triple Threat match as a teaser for what we could have expected to see at Mania 13. You get to see Bret and Shawn working together in early 1997 in the ring, and that's pretty awesome because we never got to see a real Bret versus Shawn match during this era that focuses on their abilities in the ring under normal circumstances. So let me explain. There were Bret and Shawn matches that happened in the early 90s of course, but both men had come a long way since then, and both men had made changes to how they worked in the ring. Shawn Michaels in particular was a much more athletic superstar in 1996 and 1997, so you expect a Bret vs Shawn encounter to be different in this time frame as opposed to the early 90s. Bret and Shawn did have the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12, but that match was also planned out in a very different way as opposed to a standard one-on-one match. The two men planned that match out in segments with the hopes of getting through the 60 minutes without running out of gas, so while it's still 60 minutes of Bret vs Shawn, we still aren't seeing both guys go balls to the wall and packing their abilities into a simple yet explosive standard one-on-one match. The Iron Man match gets criticised a lot for how slow it is, and it's very debatable if the Mania 12 main event's a true showcase for what Bret and Shawn could really do under normal circumstances. Bret and Shawn also met at Survivor Series 1997 of course, but that match is an absolute brawl. Most of the bout is spent in the audience and around the ring, and the story told there is more about the personal hate both guys had with each other. It's still a good match, but again, it's under circumstances that I feel didn't provide fans with a true showcase of both men's abilities. If you think about it, we didn't really ever get the Bret vs Shawn match that fans had hoped for. They never went bell to bell in a match carried by Shawn's incredible athleticism or Bret's distinctive way of telling a story through his technical abilities. I think the closest we ever got to that was Survivor Series 1992, but again, that was a different time and both guys had improved so much by 1997. This triple threat encounter we're going to look at doesn't give us that showcase bout either because it's a triple threat match and the two guys had to deal with a monster of a man in the ring at the same time. Big Sycho Sid isn't going to sit by and let Bret and Shawn have all the fun here, but we do get a glimpse of what that WrestleMania 13 match could have looked like, and guys, it would have been good. It's also important to point out that, to my knowledge, this is the earliest WWF Triple Threat match that's ever been released by WWE, well, released on DVD. In 1996, the company had a few tag team Triple Threat matches, but it wasn't until January 1997 where three-way encounters featuring only three guys began happening at house shows, with the earliest featuring Bret Hart, Steve Austin, and Triple H in San Jose, California. The Bret, Shawn, and Sid Triple Threat match happened 3 times before the Skydome encounter, so this lets us know that the match type was still a brand new concept for the WWF, but do keep in mind that other promotions were already putting three-way matches on TV. The first televised triple threat match aired on Raw's War in June 1997, and I specifically remember watching that match again for reliving the war and commenting on how rough it was around the edges. It felt like the WWF still had a lot to learn about how to properly plan out a triple threat match. It certainly doesn't flow too well, and you can tell the guys weren't used to these matches yet. Nearly every pin attempt is broken up by another guy, which really isn't necessary. And all three stay in the ring too long, whereas one guy should have spent a little time on the outside at different points in the match. Still, it's interesting to watch. What's fascinating about this is the fact that the Skydome triple threat match is planned out way better, and we see much more forward thinking in terms of keeping a guy out of the ring for a while and planning spots based around the third guy just waking up or coming back into the ring. It's a testament really to Bret, Shawn, and Sid's abilities to communicate better in the ring, or it could be a case of the match not making it to TV and things being a bit more relaxed. Keep in mind that the Owen vs Goldust vs Triple H match from the 23rd of June was during a live broadcast of Raw, so there's a bit more pressure there when live TV's involved. Now that that's all out of the way, let's do it. Let's go back to Raw in the Toronto Skydome, recap what happened with Sid, Shawn and Bret, and then we'll take a look at the match itself. Steve Austin vs Vader was the opening match during the TV broadcast, and before that match took place, Bret Hart attacked Stone Cold. Bret still hadn't fully turned heel yet, but his attitude had been slowly changing ever since his return at Survivor Series 1996. A little later on, Jim Ross interviewed former WWF champion Sycho Sid, and Jim wanted to know Sid's true feelings towards Shawn Michaels after HBK beat him at the Royal Rumble. Sid said he has a weird relationship with Michaels that's filled with ups and downs. It's a friendship on the edge of madness, but there's elements of evil within both men, and it's something they have in common. Sid thinks evil showed up at Survivor Series when the big man defeated HBK, and maybe evil showed up again at the Royal Rumble when Shawn won the belt back. But when all's said and done, Sid will still stand as the man. The real interesting stuff happens when Shawn Michaels comes out to cut a promo, and I remember wondering as a kid why Shawn was wearing his gear on this night if he wasn't gonna wrestle. Well, now we know. In regards to what Sid said about evil playing a part in the WWF title picture, Shawn agrees. He says he once thought the belt represented everything that was good, but now things are different. Sid may be a bit wacky, but he's right. The WWF title has brought out the worst in some superstars, and Shawn's one of them. HBK says though that if being bad is what it takes to be champion, then Shawn will be the worst guy the WWF has ever seen. And then Shawn addresses the Toronto audience as Bret Hart listens backstage. HBK says turnabout's fair play. Shawn got an excellent crowd reaction in San Antonio during the Royal Rumble, and if this crowd wants to boo Shawn and get behind Bret, then that's absolutely fine. I should point out though that this audience wasn't necessarily booing HBK, but they definitely preferred the Hitman. That kinda goes without saying. Shawn doesn't care about popularity contests anymore, it's all about being number one. HBK's used to being disliked because he's honest and because he's currently WWF champion. Bret can call himself the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, but he can't call himself the champ. Bret walks out and he says he finds it very hard to like HBK. Bret says Shawn's a degenerate who prides himself on being a complete and total jackass, and Shawn Michaels is nothing but a punk. Stone Cold then attacks Bret Hart just as Shawn was about to reply, and just before Raw takes a commercial break, Big Sycho Sid runs to the ring to confront Michaels. We come back, Sid and Austin are gone, and Shawn places the belt on the mat. Bret and HBK share words. HBK goes to pick the belt back up, but Bret puts a foot on it and Shawn can't reclaim his property. So Shawn gears up for a fight. He removes some of his entrance gear and he gets ready to throw down with the Hitman. But Bret then takes the belt and he goes to hand it over to HBK. Shawn puts his hand out, Bret drops the belt on the mat before flipping Shawn off, and the crowd pops as the Hitman leaves the ring. The Raw broadcast ends with a tag team match, Farouk and Mankind versus The Undertaker and Ahmed Johnson. The show then fades to black on the USA Network, but fans stay in the arena to see this triple threat match. Ring announcer Bill Dunn, who I didn't know was still with WWF in 1997, explains the rules of a triple threat match to the audience before announcing the special guest ring enforcer for this matchup, Toronto's own George Chuvalo. For those unaware, George was a former 5-time Canadian heavyweight boxing champion. He was never knocked down in his entire career that spanned 93 professional bouts, and that includes when he fought the likes of George Foreman and Muhammad Ali. He fought Ali twice, and in both fights, George went the distance. Big Sid comes out first, followed by the Hitman. Bret's looking pretty calm for this one, but he's already been in front of this audience a few times tonight. Plus, this one isn't for TV, so you can see why there's not much stress here. When Michaels makes his entrance though, and when he gets in the ring, you can see Bret giving HBK the old death stare in the ring. It's fantastic. Shawn and Bret want to fight when the bell rings. The two square up to each other. Bret shoves Shawn, Shawn shoves Bret right back, and the two start fighting while completely forgetting about Sycho Sid. So Sid smashes their heads together before hitting both men with clotheslines. Sid then picks Shawn up and he throws him out of the ring after a corner Irish whip. So now it's just Bret and Sycho Sid in the ring. Sid hits a few big clubbing blows on the Hitman, and when HBK tries to get back in the ring, Sid immediately dashes over and Shawn gets taken out again. A cornered Bret Hart then tries to get back into it, and Sid takes a few punches, but Bret's put down again as Shawn tries to enter the ring. Sid just won't let Shawn in, and the crowd cheers when Michaels gets dumped over the top rope. They're doing a good job of building up the inevitable physicality between Bret and Shawn. You then see clear as day communication between Earl Hebner and Sid. Earl's telling Sid to bring Michaels back in, and Sid completely stops what he's doing to follow orders. These are the kind of things that would get cut out of tape matches for broadcast, or at least the camera would cut away from the ring. Sid brings Shawn back inside the ropes. He goes for a corner knee strike, but Shawn moves out of the way. HBK then tunes up the band for sweet chin music, but Sid's able to grab Shawn's foot, and the big man counters with a choke slam. Sid then goes to the top rope, but he gets nature boyed when the Hitman throws him off. And now we get to see the Hitman and the Heartbreak Kid go to work. A shot to the midsection floors the WWF champion, and Bret brings it to the corner where Michaels takes more strikes. Bret then goes for a corner Irish whip, but Shawn counters and we see Bret's sternum first turnbuckle bump. Big Sid then takes a super kick while standing on the apron, and this causes him to fall to the outside, again leaving HBK and Bret all alone. Shawn stomps on Bret's head before sending him head first into the top turnbuckles. HBK then pulls off a perfect dropkick in the middle of the ring, and the crowd boos when he spends too much time walking around the ring. He picks Bret up for a few punches, and when Sid tries to get back in, Shawn sends him back out with a strike to the head. It can't be overstated how much better the general layout of this Triple Threat match is in comparison to the first ever televised Triple Threat match on Raw. It's like night and day. Bret gets floored with a punch to the jaw, and Shawn then sneakily flips the crowd off while shrugging his shoulders. He then goes for a Hurricane Rana from an Irish whip, but Bret catches him and the Hitman goes to lock in the sharpshooter. But Sid gets back in the ring to break things up, and the match continues on. Shawn summons his inner Ric Flair by taking the upside down corner bump, and on the outside he performs the Flair flop. Sid follows him out to drop him across the guardrail, and then the Hitman has to deal with Sid inside the ropes. Bret gets annihilated here. HBK tries to get back inside, and he ends up taking this bump when Sid clotheslines him. Didn't look too pleasant, did it? Bret takes a leg drop from Sid, and this gets followed up by the powerbomb. Shawn saves the match by jumping off the top rope with a double axe handle, so Bret's going to sell the move for a bit while HBK and Sid go at it. Shawn brings Sid to the corner, the big man stops HBK's offense, and Bret has to roll out of the ring when Sid sends Shawn to the ropes for a big press slam. Sycho Sid had some incredible strength. George Chuvalo watches on as the match continues. Sid slams HBK to the mat when Shawn won't let go of the ropes in the corner. Bret Hart gets back in the ring though, and the Hitman fires up with a few corner punches to Sycho Sid. Shawn tries to go after Bret, but his arch nemesis jumps from the middle rope and Bret lands on Shawn. The Hitman then gets up after landing a few punches to HBK. He hits Sid with an inverted atomic drop followed by a clothesline to the outside, and then Shawn gets turned inside out with another clothesline from the excellence of execution. This gets followed up with another Flair flop from the Heartbreak Kid. Bret lands a backdrop. He follows this up with a Russian leg sweep. He then keeps Sid on the outside after a kick to the head, and the Heartbreak Kid then takes a backbreaker. A few elbow drops gets followed up with a middle rope elbow drop attempt, but Shawn gets his feet up and Bret gets stunned upon impact, and Sid gets kept on the outside following an HBK baseball slide. This next bit kinda annoyed me because it's an edit. There must have been a botch or something, because if you look close, you'll see Bret and Shawn in a different position as soon as the camera cuts to Shawn falling out of the ring. Here's the frame before the camera cut, and here's the frame after the cut. If you're gonna release these kind of dark matches, then it has to be warts and all. No need to cut mistakes or missteps, because I think the vast majority of us understand that these matches weren't made for TV presentations. Anyway, Sid gets back in the ring and he and Bret floor each other with a double clothesline. Bret's first to his feet, so it's time for a sharpshooter and it's time to become WWF champion. The move gets applied, but Stone Cold Steve Austin runs out and he launches an attack on the Hitman. This leads to George Chuvalo hitting the ring and George knocks Austin down with a left hand. George's working punch leaves a lot to be desired, but hey, warts and all, I guess. The match then has a great finish. Sid stuns Bret and he goes for a powerbomb one more time. Bret counters it with a sharpshooter attempt, but Shawn dives off the top rope and he pins Bret after a crossbody. Bret loses the HBK in Canada after a fun triple threat match, and boy does HBK gloat about it. The champ grabs the belt and he has himself a little victory lap while Bret looks on in disgust. Sid gets out of the ring, Bret gets out to high-five some fans, and that's where it fades to black and the DVD continues on to its next match. You may be wondering why this didn't make TV, and it's pretty simple really. The finish didn't fit the narrative of Bret's story at the time. Every time Bret got an opportunity at the belt, or anytime Bret had a shot at becoming #1 contender, he always got screwed over. It happened at In Your House It's Time, and it happened at the Royal Rumble. It would happen again a few times on Raw leading up to WrestleMania, so if this match aired the way it did on TV, then it wouldn't have made much sense. If Shawn vs Bret was the plan for WrestleMania 2, then WWF would have wanted to save the physicality between the two for the big match, so there's that too. It does make you wonder why they wouldn't book another match where Bret wins and the crowd goes home happy, or they could have had Bret win this match but make it a non-title contest, but anyway, it really doesn't matter. It's a good triple threat match in comparison to other triple threat matches of 1997, and I thought it made the DVD purchase totally worth it. There's more on the set of course, but I wish there was even more, including the elusive HBK vs Bret vs Undertaker triple threat match from the September 22nd episode of Raw. I know clips are available on YouTube, but it's not the full match. Anyway, I've loads of these unreleased matches to still watch across all the other DVDs, and there's a few that's caught my attention already, so this is something I'll revisit for YouTube. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this match with me today, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching guys, and take care.